So you're the prediction professor. I know this isn't based off of any real prediction system. I know it's more based off your gut. In 2 weeks' time, this deadline that Trump has given, do you think the U.S. will be at war with Iran?
The war. Or the potential war. So this
it does seem like there is a war between Israel and Iran.
Our potential involvement on the part of a president who said, there'll be no more wars on my watch. I'll end the Ukraine war, the worst war in Europe since World War II, in 24 hours. I certainly will not lead us into another war like that misguided George W. Bush did in the Iraqi war, for example. And how close are we now to break? We've already broken a bunch of those promises, but how close are we to breaking the ultimate promise, which is I will not lead the United States into another war?
2 weeks away. The last report I heard was that he's giving himself this, I don't know how he came up with this, but this 2-week deadline to make a decision on whether or not to strike Iran.
Apparently, they already have war plans. I'm a little skeptical.
It's already in the Signal chat. Just check it.
Exactly.
Just download Signal. Pete will put you right into it.
Just turn on Signal and you'll get the war plans.
Yeah.
Do you have any confidence in war plans drawn up by Pete Hegseth?
No.
None. The guy has no qualifications.
He's not drawing them up. There's got to be somebody else behind the scenes.
I suppose, but
still.
He's the final say.
Yeah.
It is pretty scary. So, and he has said, we control the skies over Iran. We, not Israel. We, buying into the Israeli war. And then he's called for unconditional surrender of Iran. What does that mean, Sam?
I asked this last week. I have no idea. I don't know what that means.
Well, that's what we demanded of Germany and Japan in World War II, that they have to not just abandon nuclear weapons. He didn't say, they must get rid of their nuclear program. He said unconditional surrender, which means toppling the regime, just like we did with the Nazis in Germany and the fascists in Japan or the fascists in Italy. Here's a huge difference, though. We had a plan for reconstructing those societies and for purging the Nazi and fascist elements. It took a lot of money, a lot of effort over many years, but we had a definite plan and carried it out. Not only
that, but since World War II, America's regime change foreign policy has it worked a single time?
Disaster, because we don't have a viable plan. Just like Iraq. Remember, George W. Bush goes on the aircraft carrier, I think it was Abraham Lincoln, with a big banner behind him. Mission accomplished. Yeah. The mission wasn't, whatever it was, we don't even know for sure what the mission was, but it was certainly never accomplished. The result was, internal conflict between the Shiites and the Kurds. And, Iraq has been a disaster. Same thing with Libya. When we knocked out Muammar Gaddafi, Libya is another disaster and failed state. So even assuming we could topple the Islamic regime in Iran, what is the alternative? What's the plan? Again, one other thing that Donald Trump said he's not going to do is engage in these futile nation-building efforts like we had tried in Iraq and failed so miserably. I guarantee you he has no coherent plan and no ability to develop a coherent plan what to do if, in fact, we topple the Islamic Republic in Iran. Now, how many people are in Iran?
92 million.
92 million, more than double.
See, I know. Ted Cruz doesn't know, but I know.
Yeah, Ted Cruz wants to bomb the hell out of them, but he doesn't know anything about Iran, not even the population. Couldn't even guess what it was. Well, it's more than double the population of Iraq and 13 times the population of Libya. And yet somehow, some way, we believe we could reconstruct a stable, positive government if the Islamic State falls. And
I saw a clip on Fox News of them saying, Fox News commentator saying, oh, if we got involved with Iran, we'd win that war in 2 days. It's like, how many times are we not going to learn our lesson that you can't just invade countries and win a war in 2 days? It's just not possible.
How long did the war in Afghanistan go on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
20 years, 22 years?
Nearly about 20 years.
Yeah.
And the war in Iraq really has never ended,
right.
in a sense.
Why do these people keep saying, like, oh, it was the same thing with Russia. Oh, Russia's going to invade Ukraine. It'll be
and
over
2
in 2
days.
days. Yeah.
Right. It's
Wars
absurd.
are not that simple. Never.
And, I've listened to some actual commentators with deep military experience who said bombing never works. You can't drive a nation into submission by bombing them. Do you know, in the little tiny country of Vietnam, Sam, we bombed them with more ordnance than we bombed every country in World War II.
Really?
Did we win that war?
No.
No. You don't bomb into submission.
And it was a long, grueling, violent war.
Exactly. And these experts have said the only way, which would be utter disaster, not only to topple the regime, but probably even to stop them from developing a nuclear weapon, is boots on the ground. Is another, 10-year long, grinding, inconclusive war. Not in a country of 45 million, but in a country of 92 million people. Can you imagine?
I'm saying it right now. No war with Iran.
No war with Iran. And guess what? A good chunk of Trump's base, believe it or not, agrees. Yeah. Including someone I don't think I've ever agreed with on anything, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Can't believe I'm in the same camp as her and Steve Bannon, and Tucker Carlson. But the one thing you got to give them credit for, they're taking Trump at his word. They're saying this goes against everything that Trump has promised. Exactly, where we started this show. Now, remember, you may not, you're too young, but you probably know about this. How did they justify the war in Iraq back in 2003?
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction. Condoleezza Rice says, are we going to wait until the warning sign is a mushroom cloud over Washington? Was any of that true?
No.
No. And clearly, it's not necessarily true that Iran is about to build a nuclear weapon. Let me quote what the chief of intelligence, handpicked by Donald Trump, right?
Right.
Director of National Intelligence. Who's that?
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. Democrats screamed, handpicked by Trump. Quote, the intelligence community continues to assess. This is just very recently. Quote, the intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. I'll repeat that. Iran is not building a nuclear weapon.
But do you trust Tulsi Gabbard? She has her own issues, her own conflicts of interest, potentially.
I agree with that, but this is against interest. This is going against Donald Trump. And that takes a lot of courage. And if it wasn't true, I can't imagine why she would kick sand in the face of Donald Trump for no reason.
Because she's following orders from somebody other than Trump.
I don't know who that would be, frankly. I don't think... I take this at its word. Of course,
I mean, I'm not arguing about what she's saying. I think she's probably right, but I wouldn't quote her and be like, let's listen to Tulsi.
Well, the reason, again, and you don't seem to get this.
Oh, I don't, do I?
You don't get it. She's speaking against interest. I've been in 110 court cases. The strongest testimony is when someone speaks against interest.
What? Okay, I don't know if this is true, but hypothetically, what if she really is, like she's been alleged to be, a Russian agent, and she is first and foremost looking out for Putin? That could throw a wrench in your theory, no?
I guess. But in fact, Putin wants Donald Trump to go into Iran. Don't you understand that?
Does he?
Absolutely, because if we're going to wage a war in Iran, who do we have to abandon?
Ukraine.
Ukraine. We can't do both. Already, critical weapons are being diverted from Ukraine into the Middle East.
I see what you're saying.
This is why Putin has not come down on Iran's side. He loves to see America get bogged down again in the Middle East and abandon Ukraine, which is his prime objective.
I see what you're saying. And again, I think what she's saying is probably true. I don't think they have any real weaponry.
All right, here's what the truth is, and I believe it's right.
Okay.
They don't have a program to actually build the nuclear weapon, but they have what's called the threshold. That is, they've engaged in the processes of uranium enrichment and other processes that down the road, if they decide to, could enable them to build a nuclear weapon. It's called nuclear threshold. Lots of countries that don't have nuclear weapons are on the nuclear threshold. Japan, South Korea, Germany, Brazil, and now possibly Iran. So what has Trump done? He says, I don't care what the intelligence community assesses. Just like when the intelligence community said it's absolutely certain that Russia intervened in 2016 on Trump's behalf, he says, I'll believe Putin. I don't care what our intelligence community has to say. According to some sources, he doesn't even read the daily intelligence brief.
What an idiot.
Yeah. So that's the first thing he did. The second thing he did was release an edited clip of Gabbard's testimony, making it believe that she supported him, leaving out this critical assessment that I just read. That's just the way they operate. Lying is the default mechanism here. And it's also interesting. Remember what I said. We wouldn't be here except for Trump, right?
Right.
What did he do that led us to this impasse?
Pulled us out of the Iran deal.
And did he get the bigger, better deal that he said he was going to get?
No.
No. So many years later. And here's the thing. 15 years.
Yeah.
We went over all the provisions last time. 15 years before they could even start to begin to get to the nuclear threshold where they are now. Because they've had years to do it since we pulled out. So we're talking way down the road, even if the nuclear accords were not renewed. So we are here because of Donald Trump, who now blusters, right? Oh, Iran can never develop a nuclear weapon. We can never allow that to happen. Then why in the world did you pull out of a deal that twice, right before you pulled out, your own national security officials said Iran was complying with the deal. So too did the international inspectors. Yeah, the deal did not turn Iran into a democratic pro-Western nation. That was not its objective. It had one singular objective that now Trump thinks is so vital that we may get involved in a war, and that was to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. And as I said, if he hadn't pulled out, we're talking about 2031 when they would just begin to get towards the nuclear threshold that we are now, even assuming the deal was not renewed. So I agree with you, Sam. It would, again, the only one to benefit from U.S. going to war with Iran is Vladimir Putin.
Vladimir Putin.
Because that would, in effect, mean we'd have to totally abandon Ukraine. And it is not clear what we would get out of going to war with Iran.
So,
except disaster like in Libya and Iraq.
So you're the prediction professor. I know this isn't based off of any real prediction system. I know it's more based off your gut. In 2 weeks' time, this deadline that Trump has given, do you think the U.S. will be at war with Iran?
Oh, I think it's 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah, but, taco. What does taco mean?
Trump always chickens out.
I think, maybe 60-40 that he'll chicken out.
That's what I'm leaning at.
Again.
In the end. Well, that's a good... I mean, I don't want to disparage him because I think that's the right decision.
Thing.
Yeah. I think in the end, he will not do anything in Iran. But there's also some gray area. Will he strike Iran but not really go to war? Or will he go fully to war? It's not as black and white.
I think if he does take military action, it's not going to involve boots on the ground.
No, of course not. But I'm saying... Oh, okay. I see what
It'll
you're saying.
involve some kind of bombing. And by the way, they're talking about this, 30,000-pound bunker buster able to destroy the Fordo nuclear facility that's hundreds of feet underground. Again, I'm no expert in military ordnance, but I did listen to those who are, and that's by no means certain. By no means certain.
Like, you don't think that weapon is as powerful as they say it is?
I don't know. You don't ask me to evaluate weapons. I'm just saying I listen to those former military authorities who do evaluate weapons. They're not saying it wouldn't work, but they're saying it's very much uncertain that it would work. I also would remind you of another disastrous military intervention in Iran. Do you know what I'm talking about under Jimmy Carter?
The hostage situation?
The hostage rescue, to rescue the Americans taken hostage by the new Islamic regime. How did that end, Sam?
Pretty poorly.
Yes, plane and helicopters crashed. Americans died. They didn't get anywhere near the place where the hostages were being held. Any military operation, as the Russians learned after 3 years, is uncertain. And you can never be sure it's going to have a positive outcome. There are so many, I hate quoting former Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, but it was kind of clever. He said, there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns. In any military operation, there are lots of unknown unknowns.
Yeah, there's a documentary about him called that, which is actually a very good documentary. But
yeah, it's a very, very, very wise.
Well, let me ask you a question. So are we looking at essentially possibly 4 different options here? 1, Trump does nothing. 2, Trump does a few strikes and backs off. 3, he continues with this sort of from afar war and strikes Iran until they quote unquote surrender,
which won't happen.
Or 4, a full on war.
I don't think it's going to be 4, but I think more likely 2.
2, so just strike once and
right. And there's another option, which is he doesn't commit American forces, but continues to provide support and maybe weapons to Israel.
Right. So
I think that may be
5 scenarios.
A very likely scenario.